The protagonist, Rita, was seen coughing as she walked through the neighborhood. Entering a dark alley, her deep cough echoed through the stillness. The moonlight illuminated the area, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Struggling to move, Rita staggered forward, clutching her hand as blood trickled through her fingers. Weak and desperate, she whispered to herself, "Not yet." I refuse to die yet. Despite her failing health, Rita climbed a flight of stairs, each step a demonstration of her willpower. Her life had been devastated by one man's actions. At 16, her wealthy family lost everything due to false accusations tied to him, which led to her mother's tragic passing. By 19, Rita endured hardships and found herself working as a pub waitress, far from her previous life. Now, at 23, she was battling a terminal illness, with little time left. Amid her struggles, Rita met Verta Alberhart, the daughter of a noble family. Verta, to Rita's surprise, expressed envy for her impending death, speaking of a wish to escape life's burdens without effort. Rita, stunned, viewed Verta's words as self-centered and detached from the struggles of real hardship. Determined not to give up, Rita pushed forward, grappling with the idea of accepting her fate. Instead, she resolved to fight for her life, even if it meant making extreme choices. When she encountered a powerful fortune teller, he presented her with an unconventional solution, exchanging her deteriorating body for Verta's healthy one. Filled with desperation and a fierce will to survive, Rita accepted the offer, knowing it would set her on a difficult and uncertain path. After the exchange was complete, Rita awoke in Verta's body. She felt a complex mix of irritation and triumph at the situation. "Foolish girl," Rita muttered, studying her reflection in the mirror. "Such an awful personality, but an incredible body." A strange blend of gratitude and cold calculation filled her as she silently acknowledged the opportunity Verta had given her, albeit unintentionally. As she leaned closer to her reflection, Rita's expression hardened. "I wonder if she's realized what happened yet," she murmured. The thought of Verta waking up in her frail, sickly body brought a fleeting smirk to Rita's lips. "It must be quite the shock, becoming a terminally ill patient overnight," she thought. "But I've done nothing wrong. If anything, Verta should be thankful. For someone so weak and unable to face her own struggles, this is the perfect escape." As Rita adjusted to her new body, she noticed faint scars on Verta's wrists. She frowned, realizing Verta had been grappling with deep emotional struggles. "This girl, how pitiful," she muttered, shaking her head. Just then, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Miss, it's Ian. May I come in?" A voice called from outside. Startled, Rita quickly threw on a robe, her mind racing to piece together the identity of this visitor. "Come in," she said, masking her uncertainty. The door opened, and Ian, a butler of the Alberhart household, entered. He greeted Rita with formal respect, assuming her to be Verta. Rita couldn't help but notice something unsettling in his demeanor. Judging by his attire, he's definitely a butler, but why does he seem so peculiar? She wondered. "You look to be in good spirits today." And Ian remarked, his gaze briefly lingering on her. "Yes, today feels different," Rita replied, maintaining the facade. Ian expressed relief, commenting that she had seemed melancholic in recent days. "Miss," Ian continued, his tone softening, "you've injured yourself again." His eyes were fixed on the faint scars on her wrists, and his voice carried genuine concern. Rita feigned indifference, dismissing his worry. Ian sighed, speaking gently but firmly, "No matter how much you harm yourself, it won't change anything." As Ian spoke about Verta's engagement to a nobleman from the Lawrence family, Rita's mind reeled. "This girl has a fiancé?" she thought, feeling a surge of unease at the idea of being thrust into such a relationship. Ian, misinterpreting her silence, attempted to reassure her about the benefits of an arranged marriage. However, Rita could only think of how these pressures might have contributed to Verta's misery. Rita resolved to play along, responding with vague agreement to Ian's remarks. Yet, her instincts told her there was more to the story than what Ian was letting on. She decided she would uncover the truth about Verta's life, step by step, while carefully maintaining her cover. Rita's mind was racing, processing the bizarre situation she found herself in. The idea of a butler who was supposed to serve the family, acting so familiarly with the daughter of the household, felt utterly strange. Ian's actions were uncharacteristic of his role, and Rita could sense the unspoken tension. As he carried out his duties, Rita felt a sense of unease mixed with an unfamiliar response to the situation. She tried to push past her discomfort, realizing the importance of maintaining appearances for the time being. After their interaction, Ian gently caressed Rita's face, speaking of the Lawrence family's future and the benefits of her eventual decisions. He kissed her hand softly before excusing himself, leaving Rita alone to contemplate the life Verta had been living and the complex emotions it stirred within her. Later, in the solitude of her bath, Rita pondered the situation. She felt conflicted, understanding the need to conceal her true thoughts in this new role. She had to keep up appearances, suppressing any malice until the right moment. Rising from the water, Rita wrapped herself in a robe, determined to embrace her new identity and the opportunity it presented. As she walked through the castle garden, the weight of her past life seemed to fade. The person she had been, with her limitations and powerless anger, was gone. Now, she was Count Alberhart, the daughter of a prestigious family. Determined to take charge of her new life, Rita summoned the maids and instructed them to bring her the dresses, dismissing them with a cool, commanding presence. As they laid out the gowns, Rita quickly decided that changes were necessary. She gave precise orders for alterations, rejecting anything she deemed unnecessary or excessive. Her instructions left the maids in confusion, but Rita remained steadfast in her decisions. The maids were left to process Rita's unusual behavior. The lady never acted this way, one of them thought. But Rita was undeterred. She had a plan, and she would make it clear that she would no longer be controlled by anyone, not even by the expectations that others had for her. After issuing further commands, Rita quietly observed the maids gossiping outside the room. She listened intently, gathering information as they spoke about Verta's discontent with her fiancé and the upcoming visit from the Lawrence family. The revelation that her fiancé had ties to Proud Carter, a man who had been part of the circumstances that led to Rita's fall from grace, only intensified her resolve. How interesting, Rita thought to herself. A small smirk forming. The past had caught up with her, but now, as Count Alberhart, she would take control of her destiny. I am going to enjoy this, she whispered to herself with a growing sense of satisfaction. Rita sat in quiet reflection, her mind turning over recent events. I've always wondered what motivated him to get involved with Baron Wicker's family, especially when it led to him chasing out the young daughter. What could have driven the second son of the powerful Marquis Heath Carter to meddle in something so trivial? She muttered to herself, her fingers resting against her lips as she pondered. Her thoughts were clouded with uncertainty, but a sense of determination soon took over. I don't know the answer yet, but I will find out, she said to herself, her voice tinged with resolve. Carter's actions won't go unnoticed. He'll get what's coming to him. A faint smile curled at her lips as she continued plotting her next move. As she continued her thoughts, Jana and Sonia appeared visibly tired from waiting. The sudden opening of the door startled the maids, but Rita remained calm. Please organize the perfumes and bring them all out, she instructed with a composed smile. Rita saw perfumes as tools of influence, able to captivate and enchant. Even the simple perfume she wore as a barmaid had some effect, and she imagined how much more powerful Verta's collection might be. Though her taste in dresses may leave something to be desired, she certainly has an excellent perfume collection, Rita thought, reflecting on Verta's choices. A knock at the door pulled Rita back to the present. Who is it? She asked, her tone sharp as Ian, the servant, entered. He informed her that her fiancé had arrived earlier than expected, reminding her of the significance of the meeting between the two families. Will he be bringing his friend again? Rita inquired, her gaze sharp. Yes, Baron Jacquard will be accompanying him, Ian confirmed, raising Rita's suspicions. Why does Baron Jacquard always come along? Doesn't he ever tire of it? She asked, her tone scrutinizing. He does seem quite loyal to his master, doesn't he? Rita added, turning her gaze to Ian. Ian gave no response before excusing himself. Rita was left to reflect on Ian's strange behavior. He was so focused on my fiancé, yet didn't mention the Baron until now. And he seemed surprised when I brought up the Baron. Something's off about all of this. About Ian, Lawrence's son, and the Baron. The day of the meeting arrived, and Rita prepared to move forward with her plans. She stood before the mirror, dressed in a flattering black dress, the scent of her perfume lingering in the air. As she gazed at the scars on her wrists, remnants of Verta's failed suicide attempt, a thought crossed her mind. What a shame, to mar such a beautiful body, she mused, attempting in vain to erase the scars. Miss, your fiancé and his guest have arrived. Should I show them in? Jana asked, holding a tray. Rita nodded, giving her permission, but as Jana turned to leave, Rita blocked her path. Send Sonia to bring in my fiancé. Jana, stay with me, Rita ordered firmly. But miss, Jana hesitated, unsure of how to proceed, but Rita's command left no room for argument. Rita turned toward a nearby cupboard, opened it, and picked up a mop stick. A cold smile crept onto her face, making Jana uneasy. Miss, you can't mean. Jana began, but Rita's gaze silenced her. Get in, Rita said firmly, causing Jana to comply reluctantly. As Rita's fiancé and the Baron entered, the maids couldn't help but blush at the sight of the handsome guests. The two men strode confidently toward Rita, unaware of the change in her. Verta, my beautiful fiancé, John greeted, his face flushing as he approached her. It's been too long, Jean, she replied with a soft smile, extending her hand for a kiss. He complied, his touch lingering slightly longer than necessary. Baron Jacquard followed, also kissing Rita's hand, though she couldn't ignore the lack of land or the uncertain future of his title. Is this why he acts as both protector and servant to Jean? Rita mused as she exchanged pleasantries with the Baron. Ah, Baron Jacquard, you certainly have a lot of free time on your hands, she remarked, masking her unease. The Baron's response only made Rita feel more uncomfortable. She forced a smile as she withdrew her hand, his stare unsettling her further. This man is suspicious too, Rita thought as she led them to their seats. I hope the refreshments I've prepared meet your expectations, she said, offering a polite smile as she arranged a tea party for her guests. Please, take a seat, Lucia offered, gesturing toward the chairs. Jean and the Baron exchanged nods before sitting down. Rita was surprised when Jean chose to sit opposite her, with the Baron beside her. What is he doing? Rita wondered, taken aback by the seating arrangement. Jean's soft smile only confused Rita further. Another man is sitting next to his fiancée, and yet John seems completely comfortable with it, she thought to herself, managing a fake smile in return. Baron Jacquard exchanged a brief look with John before leaning in closer to Rita, nudging her slightly. She felt a twinge of discomfort, but tried her best to remain composed. What's going on? I can't afford to act rashly here, she thought, trying to read the situation. You seem less uncomfortable today. Have you changed your mind? Jean finally spoke, addressing Rita directly. Rita struggled to interpret his words, trying to figure out his true intentions. I thought it would be foolish to remain stubborn for no reason, so I've decided to try for now, Rita replied, her words leaving Jean puzzled. Very reasonable. As expected, you're quite sensible, he remarked, causing Rita to study his expression closely. Rita noted the hint of caution and something else lurking in Jean's eyes. There's a trace of lust, but also caution. He probably sees me as a nuisance, she thought, feeling more certain that her fiancé had no real feelings for Verta. Jean nodded toward the Baron, who stood up suddenly. The Baron grabbed her arm and turned her toward him, pressing her down onto the couch with surprising force. Rita's heart raced with fear as she struggled to understand his intentions. Rita felt uneasy with Baron Jacquard's overbearing demeanor. He acted inappropriately, invading her personal space despite her clear discomfort. She protested firmly, saying, "Don't touch me," and pushed him away, her breathing unsteady. Jacquard's persistence unsettled her further, and Jean watched the scene with an unsettling smirk. How does it feel to be treated this way in front of your fiancé, Verta? Jean sneered, his words cold and mocking. Rita's mind raced with anger and disgust, thinking, "It feels unbearable, you despicable man!" Jean's twisted sense of enjoyment deepened her sense of betrayal. Jean continued his taunts. "The sight of resistance against power is truly striking," he said with a calculating tone. Rita suppressed her fear, determined not to let him see her falter. When Jean pressured her to comply with his manipulative schemes, Rita stood her ground. She firmly rejected his demands, realizing she could no longer afford to tolerate his behavior. Despite her protests, Jean ordered Jacquard to persist. Rita stepped back, resisting as Jacquard approached her. Just as the situation seemed dire, Jana entered the room unexpectedly, holding a mopstick. "Take your hands off her immediately," she commanded, her voice strong and unwavering. Jacquard hesitated, startled by Jana's sudden intervention. "How dare you act this way toward Miss Alberhart in her own home? You call yourselves gentlemen?" Jana's words hung in the air, her courage catching everyone off guard. "Rita, surprised by Jana's bravery, thought, "She's incredible." Jean, clearly displeased by the interruption, begrudgingly left with Jacquard. Rita, though shaken, sank onto the couch, relief washing over her. After the confrontation, Jana worried her interference might have worsened things. However, Rita reassured her, expressing gratitude and instructing her to fetch Ian. Rita resolved to address the matter decisively. When Jana returned with Ian, Rita wasted no time. She ordered Ian to triple Jana's pay and promoted her to the role of her personal maid. Jana hesitated, feeling unworthy, but Rita insisted firmly. Alone with Ian, Rita confronted him about his perceived involvement with her fiancé's plans. Ian attempted to deny wrongdoing, but Rita was resolute. She stepped closer, her tone calm but firm, and demanded to know the truth. Ian, caught off guard, struggled to respond, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Ian remained quiet, visibly unsettled as Rita confronted him. She described the recent events, maintaining eye contact. Her tone was pointed as she recounted Baron Jacquard's assertive advances and inappropriate behavior. "He acted as though he could control me," she said, her gaze steady. Rita studied Ian intently as she questioned him further. Her expression shifted, and her voice grew sharper. "Did he make any promises to you? Were you part of this?" she asked coldly, her tone demanding an honest response. Ian stammered, caught off guard by her intensity, and denied any involvement. "That's why you keep bringing up my fiancé while acting as though you're loyal to me," Rita replied sharply. Ian tried to explain. "Miss, within noble families, it's not uncommon for discretion to be required in private matters. Many relationships have complexities that—" "Enough," Rita interrupted, her voice firm. "Never show yourself before me again. Do you understand?" Ian hesitated before replying. "You're not my employer, miss," prompting Rita to dismiss him with a cold slap and turn her back on him. The next day, as she sipped tea, Rita noticed faint marks on her arm left by the previous encounter. Reflecting on the situation, she thought, "How can I ensure they understand they can't treat me this way?" Rita considered seeking help, but quickly dismissed Count Alberhart as an option, reasoning, "He's the one who arranged this marriage. He wouldn't help me." Weighing her options, she began formulating a plan. "Miss?" Jana's voice broke through her thoughts. Rita looked up as Jana approached. "The fortune teller you mentioned has arrived," Jana informed her. "Is that so?" Rita replied with a slight smile. "Show them to the sitting room." She paused momentarily, considering, then added, "And send Ian on an errand." As Rita made her way toward the sitting room, she encountered Ian in the hallway. "What are you doing here, Ian?" she asked, her tone neutral. "Miss, who is inside?" Ian asked, his expression uncertain. "None of your business," Rita replied lightly, though her gaze was unwavering. Ian hesitated, clearly confused, but before the conversation could continue, Jana appeared, calling for Ian's attention. "The gardener needs you urgently," Jana announced. Rita smiled and said, "You should attend to that." Ian glanced back at Rita as he left, puzzled by her demeanor. Why has she changed so much, he thought, feeling unsettled. Rita entered the room to greet her guest. "A pleasure to meet you, miss," the fortune teller said with a slight bow. Rita smirked. "Formalities, really? No one else is here, so why not drop the act," she suggested. The fortune teller removed their hood, revealing their face. "How is the body treating you, Rita?" they asked. "She's beautiful, wealthy, and healthy." "No complaints," Rita replied with a grin. "The magic worked well, though perhaps it helped that she wasn't attached to life," the fortune teller remarked. "Thank you, Yersha," Rita said, addressing the fortune teller by their true name. Yersha replied, "It was a fair exchange. No thanks needed." "So, if you've come to see me, does that mean?" Rita asked, her expression serious. "Yes, she passed yesterday," Yersha confirmed. Rita's expression shifted and she smiled faintly. "Is that so?" she replied. "You remember our agreement?" Yersha asked pointedly. "Of course," Rita assured them. "What do you need from me?" "Nothing yet," Yersha replied. Later, Rita took a carriage to confirm the news. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, she whispered, "Still as stunning as ever," before shutting the mirror with satisfaction. At the morgue, Rita was greeted by an attendant. "She passed 2 days ago in the early morning," they informed her as they approached the body. Rita covered her nose discreetly. "The smell?" she thought. The attendant continued, "It's always a shame when the young go so soon." Rita nodded solemnly. I should have visited more often, she said, her voice trembling as though holding back tears. She uncovered the body's face and, with a mix of feigned grief and concealed satisfaction, said, "My dear friend, what a tragedy." Inside, her thoughts betrayed her calm demeanor. "Yes, that's my body. It's finally over." Rita vividly recalls the moment her life took a drastic turn, transforming her existence from one of privilege to one of hardship. It began during her youth, as she played the organ while her mother entertained a guest. Rita listened quietly, her fingers gliding over the keys, as proud Carter made his request. "I need to inspect the crops, but the journey to the border will take 2 days. I would be deeply grateful if you allowed me to stay here for 3 weeks," Carter said earnestly. Rita's mother hesitated. "I am without a husband, alone with my daughter in this manner. For a son of the Carter family to stay here alone seems—" Her voice trailed off. Carter offered a solution. "If others were to join me, would it ease your concerns? I am good friends with Sir Charles Wicker and his son." Rita's mother looked uneasy, but societal norms reassured her. "I suppose. I hope you find your stay restful," she replied politely. "Thank you," Carter responded, pressing a kiss to her hand in a gesture of gratitude. Rita noticed her mother blush at his charm, unaware of his underlying intentions. Over the following weeks, Carter's influence over her mother grew, though Rita sensed something was amiss. One evening, a stranger entered her mother's room under the guise of familiarity. "What are you doing here? Where's Proud?" her mother asked, alarmed. The stranger approached with an unsettling demeanor, silencing her protests as she struggled. Rita's memory of her mother's muffled cries haunted her. She recalled the commotion that followed when the household was alerted. Her mother's voice rang out, "Help me!" drawing everyone to her room. Rita and others found the stranger there, leaving her mother visibly shaken. Rita's uncle arrived and reacted with anger. "You've disgraced our family," he accused, ignoring her mother's protests. Proud Carter added to the chaos, planting seeds of doubt. "Perhaps Rita isn't even Baron Wicker's true daughter," he said. Within days, Rita and her mother were cast out of the Wicker family, their noble status stripped. They were left to fend for themselves, their lives forever altered. A decade later, Rita's circumstances had worsened. Once a noblewoman, she now worked as a waitress in a small pub, her health deteriorating. One day, while cleaning, she coughed violently, blood staining her hand. Staring at it, she whispered, "If only I had done as my mother did back then, I wouldn't have had to endure this suffering." Rita wiped her mouth with a torn poster, noticing the face on it. The poster read, "Yersha, wanted for murder and witchcraft." She recognized the face. "That man next door," she murmured. The details on the poster puzzled her, but she pocketed it before returning to work. Later, at the hospital, Rita received grim news. Her illness was terminal, and she struggled to process the reality. "Why me?" she whispered, leaning against a wall, consumed by despair. Quarantined soon after, Rita found herself unexpectedly visited by Verta Alberhart, a figure from her past. "That girl again," Rita muttered as she watched Verta approach. Verta's words surprised her. "Rita, I envy you. Soon you'll be free from pain," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. Rita was taken aback. "What is this girl talking about?" she thought, confused. Verta revealed scars on her wrist and added, "Can you understand now why I envy you?" Rita's frustration boiled over. "If you want to escape life so badly, take my place," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to die yet," she admitted, overcome with emotion. Moments later, the sound of an approaching carriage caught Rita's attention. She hid behind a tree as it stopped. Emerging from the carriage was Prince Van Brandt, a figure of authority. Rita's heart skipped a beat, but her relief turned to anger when she saw another familiar face. Proud Carter. His presence reignited the memories of betrayal and loss. Rita's thoughts swirled as Prince Van Brandt entered the morgue, the somber atmosphere amplifying the unexpected weight of his presence. His arrival in such a grim setting stirred emotions she hadn't yet had time to untangle. "Your Royal Highness, what brings you to such a place?" she had asked earlier, bowing gracefully. The prince's momentary surprise was evident, but his courteous response had played into her hands. Rita had seized the moment to weave her narrative, recounting a tale of grief and loss that she knew would resonate with his sense of duty. Her request for privacy to mourn had been granted without hesitation, leaving the prince to reflect on the encounter and its implications. Once alone, Rita had carried out the final stage of her ruse, scattering the ashes of a body she had claimed as her own. It was a symbolic severing of ties with her past, solidifying her new identity as Verta. The act was bittersweet, marking both a loss and a new beginning. Back in her quarters, Rita continued to refine her disguise. Her interactions with the household staff, such as the maid Jana, were measured and intentional. When Jana suggested an outing to enjoy the fine weather, Rita casually mentioned friends, an attempt to build a plausible backstory for her assumed identity. Jana's reaction, a mix of disbelief and curiosity, reminded Rita of the delicate balance she maintained. Every word, every action was a calculated move to strengthen her persona and further her objectives. Rita's path was a precarious one, driven by a mixture of survival and ambition. Each step forward demanded a sacrifice, each interaction a gamble. Yet she pressed on, her resolve unyielding as she plotted her next move in the intricate game she had chosen to play. Rita, now living under the guise of Verta, stepped cautiously into the unfamiliar territory of high society. At the Shade estate, she was met with warmth by Julie Shade, the Duke's eldest daughter, who, as Rita soon learned, was Verta's only true friend within Osland's noble circles. "Thank you for having me, Julie," Rita said with quiet sincerity, her voice reflecting the gratitude she felt. The openness and genuine delight in Julie's welcome were unexpected, contrasting sharply with the calculated formality Rita had anticipated. Julie's laugh was soft and inviting. "It's been far too long, Verta. I was starting to think you'd abandoned me," she said, her light tone laced with genuine concern. Over tea, Rita carefully blended truth with fiction, referencing Verta's connection to the welfare center to ground her story in authenticity. "We recently lost one of the patients I was close to," Rita said, her tone tinged with an emotion that, while fabricated, felt convincing in its delivery. Julie nodded thoughtfully. "The welfare center. Prince Brant's initiative?" she asked, her curiosity evident. "Yes," Rita confirmed, keeping her response measured and non-committal. As their conversation shifted to personal topics, Julie asked lightly, "How are things with your fiancé?" Her casual tone didn't mask her expectation for a meaningful answer. Rita hesitated, then responded, "It's complicated." Julie's advice that followed was heartfelt, but reflected her own privileged perspective. "You should take control of your life, Verta," she said earnestly. "You're capable of so much more than what others expect of you." Rita smiled politely, though inwardly she noted the gap between Julie's idealistic views and the harsh reality of Verta's situation. The distance between them wasn't just social or experiential, it was rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of the constraints Verta faced. Their exchange was interrupted by the arrival of Blaine Shade, the Duke's heir. His presence shifted the atmosphere immediately. "Blaine," Julie greeted him curtly, her tone revealing thinly veiled annoyance. Rita, on the other hand, rose to greet him with the practiced politeness of someone well-versed in navigating delicate situations. "Lady Verta," Blaine said smoothly, taking her hand. "You're as lovely as ever." "Thank you," Rita replied, her modest smile concealing her wariness of his charm. Julie's irritation was evident, though she held her tongue as Blaine focused his attention entirely on Rita. Blaine offered to escort her to her carriage, and as they walked, his tone shifted to something more personal. "Julie is passionate," he said, alluding to her aspirations of joining the Royal Guard. "I only hope she doesn't tarnish the family name with her impulsiveness." Rita nodded politely, giving a neutral response while noting Blaine's thinly veiled disdain for his sister's ambitions. At the carriage, Blaine leaned in closer than was appropriate, lowering his voice. "If you ever need anything, or think of a way to ease my concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be more than happy to help." Rita observed Blaine intently. So the siblings are vying for the title of heir. That explains Julia's insistence on joining the Royal Guard. If Julia actually wins this little feud and becomes the Countess, it'll surely cause complications, Rita thought. For my own peace, I must intervene. Her gaze lingered on Blaine's faint smile. "Miss? Is everything all right?" Blaine asked, noticing her silence. "Oh, nothing," Rita replied with a calm smile, catching him off guard. She used to stumble over herself for attention, but now she's able to hide her emotions? Blaine thought. Thank you for the escort. Goodbye now, Rita said, stepping into her carriage and leaving the Shade estate. A few days later, early in the morning, Rita met Blaine at the Alberhart Manor. A carriage awaited their departure, and Rita wore a red cloak to conceal her face. We meet again sooner than expected, Lady Verta, Blaine greeted her with a smile. Yes. Are the preparations complete? She asked. Of course. Shall we review them together? He replied, holding the carriage door open for her. Very well. We have much to discuss, she said as she stepped inside. From a corner of the estate, Ian watched Blaine's carriage depart. Inside, Rita stared out of the window while Blaine studied her. She hadn't complained once about the state of the carriage and had chosen practicality over her usual elaborate dresses. I always thought she was just a spoiled brat, Blaine reflected. When Rita turned to meet his gaze, she offered a polite smile, which he returned. By the way, how did you know about the illicit brothel operating in the Duke's domain? Blaine asked. I have my ways, she replied softly. And how did you uncover that Count Todd, head of the Royal Guard, is involved in heinous activities? She countered. Don't you know? A woman with secrets is the most intriguing, she said with a faint smile. Blaine chuckled. You have no idea. In her previous life, Rita had lived with Count Todd's family after her mother's death. The Countess, a close friend of her mother, had arranged for Rita to work as a private tutor for their son, Lieben. On her first day, Count Todd greeted her warmly. Welcome. My wife told me all about your situation. Truly unfortunate, he said, leaning in to greet her with excessive familiarity, leaving her flustered. I entrust Lieben to you. Stay as long as you need, he added, his laughter filling the room as he embraced her inappropriately. Thank you, Count Todd, Rita stammered. Days later, Count Todd cornered Rita in his room. He tried to act improperly toward her as she pleaded with tears in her eyes. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Lieben appeared. Miss Rita? Lieben's voice broke the tension, causing the Count to release her. Lieben, she gasped, clutching her dress as tears streamed down her face. At dinner one evening, Rita sat silently beside the Count. Beneath the table, his hand crept onto her lap, making her tremble. Why are you touching Miss Rita, father? She doesn't like it, Lieben said abruptly, freezing everyone at the table. The Countess slammed her hand down. Lieben, go to your room, she commanded sternly. Lieben obeyed, leaving slowly. Dear, shall we speak outside? The Countess said to her husband. Once alone, the Countess returned to Rita. I must apologize. I never imagined he would act so shamefully toward my friend's daughter, she said sorrowfully, holding Rita's hand. You're from a respectable family, and yet he treated you like this. I'll ensure you're compensated. But I must ask you to leave. I'll arrange another place for you to stay, she said. Rita's hands clenched her dress as tears fell. She nodded silently, unable to speak. Back in the present, Rita's expression remained composed despite the flood of painful memories. If I'd gone to the place the Countess arranged, would things have been different? No. That man would have found me. Working at the tavern was the better choice, she thought, sighing. Lady Verta. Blaine's voice interrupted her thoughts. They had arrived at their destination. This is the Peach of May, Blaine informed her as they stepped out. As their carriage came to a stop, they stepped out. Is this the place? Blaine asked, eyeing the fruit shop with uncertainty. Yes, Rita replied, her voice steady and confident. Inside, in a hidden area beneath the shop, the owner was restrained, his eyes covered with a blindfold. Who are you? Why are you doing this? He demanded, but his captors remained silent. The door creaked open, and Blaine entered with Rita by his side. You're here, Blaine said lightly as he observed the tied man. My, this seems like nothing more than an ordinary fruit shop, Blaine remarked, his tone almost mocking. It's all just a misunderstanding, the shop owner stammered before being silenced by a sharp kick from one of Blaine's men, sending him to the ground. Don't be so frightened. I merely want to make a proposal, Blaine said, smiling. This man is calculating. He's suited for this kind of work, Rita thought as she glanced at Blaine. At Blaine's nod, one of his men grabbed the shop owner's collar, forcing him back to a kneeling position. Among the customers frequenting your establishment, one in particular stands out. Count Todd. I trust you're acquainted? Blaine asked. The shop owner flinched but stayed silent. Oh dear, this is our first meeting and I seem to have left a poor impression. How impolite of me. Let's have a proper conversation. Just you and me, Blaine said smoothly before glancing at Rita, who gave him an approving nod. Blaine's men began their work, pressing the shop owner for information. Under the pressure, he eventually confessed. As Rita wandered down the lavish hallway, her footsteps quiet, her thoughts weighed heavy. How many lives have been ruined in this place? She wondered. Count Todd will finally face justice, she thought with a small, determined smile. A few days later, Count Todd arrived at the Peach of May. He cleared his throat, signaling to the establishment's manager. Count Todd, welcome, the manager greeted with a bow. Which peach shall I arrange for you today? Do you have any new ones? The Count asked. Of course. Please follow me. The manager smiled as he led the way. The Count was taken to a private room where a young woman sat quietly on the bed. Am I your first customer? He asked. The girl nodded, her cheeks slightly flushed. Count Todd felt a rush of interest. She reminds me of Rita when she was younger, he thought. If only my fool of a son had kept quiet, he mused bitterly before clearing his throat. You're charming. How old are you? He asked as he sat beside her. 17, she answered softly. Humph. Older than I expected, he said, brushing her hair gently. Unbeknownst to him, the girl had lied. She was actually 25. Even lying about my age feels normal now, she thought as she retrieved a wine bottle and poured a glass for him. What's your name? He asked, sipping his wine. Risa, she replied, making him pause mid-drink before finishing the glass. What a lovely name. Well, shall we begin? He said, setting the glass down and attempting to unbutton his shirt. The buttons caught, and he grumbled in frustration. The girl's expression sharpened. Now was her moment. She lunged at him, startling him as they fell back onto the bed. Memories of her earlier encounter with Rita surfaced in her mind. Rita's offer echoed. If you take care of that monster, I'll pay you double. With that money, I can finally leave this life and start over, she thought, her resolve firm. Drawing a concealed knife, she carried out the act swiftly. Count Todd woke the next morning with a pounding headache. Holding his head, he muttered, Ah! Where am I? His memory was hazy, but he recalled going to the Peach of May. Sweat beaded on his forehead as flashes of the previous night surfaced. His encounter with an escort, an unexpected attack, and then pain. He gasped, his face paling as he felt a sharp, unbearable pain in his lower body. Panic surged through him. Hey, is anyone there? Someone, come quickly, he shouted. A voice answered from the doorway. Oh my, it seems he's woken up. Count Todd turned to see Blaine Shade entering the room. Blaine leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Duke Shade's son? Count Todd stammered. Then, does that mean this is Count Shade's estate? You should avoid moving too much, Blaine advised, pulling a chair to sit beside the bed. Count Todd winced, gripping the sheets. What happened? He asked through gritted teeth. Do you know of the Peach of May, by any chance? Blaine asked, his expression unreadable. Pardon? Count Todd feigned ignorance. Are you also a patron, Sir Blaine? Blaine's expression darkened. Count Todd flinched. That place was an illegal brothel, disguised as a shop, exploiting young girls. I received an anonymous tip and confirmed everything myself, Blaine said, his tone steady. Count Todd forced a neutral expression. Is that so? The nerve to conduct such a thing within Shade territory. Blaine's sharp gaze sent a chill down Todd's spine. He instinctively remained silent. Blaine continued. While investigating, I found you unconscious and injured. Unfortunately, your attacker escaped. Todd's grip on the sheets tightened. Your wounds were severe, so I administered first aid immediately, Blaine said. Then, after a pause, he added, However, I'm afraid you won't be able to have children. Todd's breath hitched. His eyes widened in horror. What? What do you mean? He stammered. Pain shot through him as he cried out. Unbeknownst to him, Rita was eavesdropping just outside. Quit crying, she thought with little sympathy. It's not like anyone died. Todd took a shaky breath, composing himself. What did you tell my household? He asked. I informed them you were gravely injured while assisting in the raid, Blaine replied. Todd exhaled in relief. Thank you. Blaine's lips curled into a smirk. However, I can only lie for so long. His tone was casual, but his eyes were anything but. The Shade family values honesty, after all. Rita raised an eyebrow at that. Family values? Really? She mused. Is he truly the Duke's son? Todd's heart pounded. Please, don't say anything, he he pleaded. Blaine ignored his desperation. My younger sister, Julia, intends to join the Royal Guard. Todd cut him off immediately. I'll ensure her admission. No, I'll make sure she becomes the head of the Guard. His voice was eager, desperate to secure Blaine's silence. But Blaine simply retracted his hand. No. Todd blinked in confusion. Reject her application, Blaine ordered. Make sure she never even gets near the Royal Guard. His voice turned cold. Do you understand? Todd was stunned. Pardon? I won't allow a small, delicate girl like her to join, Blaine said, his face unreadable. If she were to get hurt, he trailed off, as if saddened by the thought. Todd, however, knew better. Small? Delicate? Julia Shade? The idea was absurd. Blaine's expression hardened. If anything were to happen to my sister... I understand, Todd interrupted. In return, please keep this a secret. Blaine gave a slow nod. On Duke Shade's honor, he promised. Now, rest until someone from your household comes for you. He stood, bowed slightly, and exited the room. Once the door shut, a quiet chuckle escaped him. To think she requested he be neutered. How amusing, he murmured, strolling down the hallway. Meanwhile, Rita heard a knock. Lady Verta, Blaine Shade greeted as he entered. They exchanged formal bows. You were a great help, Blaine said. I must thank you. I'm glad to be of service, she replied. Blaine studied her with an unreadable expression. Rita frowned. What's with that look? Lady Verta, Blaine mused with a smirk. What a shame to hand you over to another man. If you ever need my assistance, please let me know. I'd love to express my gratitude, Blaine Shade said. Rita paused for a moment before offering a slight smile. That gratitude, could you show it to me now? She stepped closer, her expression composed. Blaine regarded her with interest. How may I help you, Lady Verta? He asked, swiftly placing a hand on her waist and pulling her closer. After a brief moment, he let go. Rita removed her gloves, revealing faint bruises on her hands. Blaine frowned as he gently took her hand. What is this? He asked, surprised by the marks. Rita exhaled softly, recalling her confrontation with Jean and Baron Jacquard. She had no intention of forgetting or forgiving. I had a small accident when my fiancé visited the other day, she said casually, lacing her fingers together. My, he must be quite passionate. Blaine remarked with an amused smile. May I ask what it is you need my assistance with? Rita's expression turned serious. By chance, do you know of Baron Jacquard? Instead of asking about her fiancé, she inquires about his subordinate. Blaine thought, slightly puzzled. I know that his family lacks prestige or wealth despite his title, Blaine said as he walked over to his seat. He also serves as your fiancé's bodyguard. I already know that, Rita thought, unimpressed. Blaine leaned back. At least, that's how he appears on the surface. In truth, he owns an underground establishment, the secret boutique of dreams. His lips curled into a knowing smile. A place where one can find many fascinating curios, if they know how to look. Rita remained silent. Blaine studied her reaction. So, Lady Verta isn't so different from other women after all. His thoughts drifted momentarily to a ball he had attended. Duke Shade's son is looking quite handsome tonight, a noblewoman whispered to her friend as they watched him converse with another guest. How can a man be so good-looking? Another murmured, blushing. Blaine had approached them with a charming smile. Enjoying your evening, ladies? Sir Shade, it's been so long, one of them had responded eagerly. We were just admiring how handsome Sir Hudson is, the second had added, her cheeks pink. So handsome, that Sir Hudson. They had sighed, exchanging glances. Ah, how predictable, Blaine had thought with amusement. Trying to stir my envy by mentioning another man. His attention snapped back to the present as Rita's voice broke the silence. Then, what do you know about my fiancé, Count Jean Lawrence? She asked, her tone laced with curiosity. Blaine raised an eyebrow. She actually wants to know more about him? It's not just a tactic? Feigning a smile, he replied. I would appreciate your honest opinion, Rita added, her gaze steady. Blaine hesitated briefly. My, how disappointing, he finally said, shaking his head. A beautiful lady, yet she insists on discussing other men in my presence. Rita let out a soft laugh. Oh my, what can I do to improve your mood? She asked, playful yet deliberate. Blaine smirked. Well, your fiancé is a lucky man. If you wish to soothe my jealousy. He tapped his lips with a finger, his expression suggestive. Rita's lips curved slightly. She took slow, measured steps toward him, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Blaine watched her closely, curiosity flickering in his eyes. What is she planning? She leaned in. Huh? Blaine thought, momentarily caught off guard. A soft breath ghosted against his neck. He felt his pulse quicken. Is she... Before he could react, Rita cupped his face, tilting his head slightly. His skin tingled where her fingers touched. Blaine parted his lips, expecting a kiss, but Rita did something unexpected. She leaned in further, her lips brushing against his ear, and in one slow, deliberate motion, she traced the shell with her tongue. Blaine's breath hitched. His fingers twitched. Then, as if testing his reaction, her hand trailed down, grazing over the fabric of his trousers. A shudder ran through him. He barely suppressed a sound, his body reacting instinctively. That's my... Rita murmured against his ear, her words deliberately left unfinished. She shifted slightly, biting down lightly on the side of his neck. A low sound escaped Blaine's lips. Her fingers pressed just a little harder against the growing heat below. Blaine, overwhelmed by the sensation, struggled to regain his composure. His mind clouded, his body betraying him. And then, she stopped. Rita straightened, adjusting her hair with a casual flick of her fingers. Blaine blinked, dazed, still caught in the haze of her touch. Get a grip, she whispered against his ear. His breath hitched as reality snapped back into focus. Rita took a step back, slipping her gloves on once more. Consider that an early payment, she said lightly. I trust you'll provide me with more information next time. Blaine could only watch, still reeling as she turned toward the door. No need to escort me out, she added, a final tease before making her exit. Blaine remained seated, expression unreadable, though his mind raced. Goodbye, for now, Rita said, glancing over her shoulder before disappearing through the door. Blaine exhaled, running a hand through his hair. She's dangerous. And yet, a smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. Blaine's shade stood by the window, gazing outside as his mind replayed his encounter with Rita. The way she had skillfully led him on, only to leave him flustered in the end. It was unsettling. She had me under her thumb. Just like that. I was careless. He let out a quiet sigh. There was something about her. Something dangerous. It was best to keep his distance, for now. Meanwhile, back at Alberhart Manor, Rita hurried into her parlor, sinking into her chair. She was exhausted. I'll rest for a moment and wash up later, she murmured before drifting into sleep. A familiar scent filled her senses. Herb oil. The touch on her scalp was gentle yet firm, lulling her into relaxation. A soft sigh escaped her lips. Jana? She called out in her half-asleep state. Are you awake, miss? A voice responded. Rita's eyes fluttered open slightly to see Ian standing over her. You looked weary, so I thought a massage might help, he said, his fingers pressing into her temples with practiced ease. Rita tensed for a moment, but soon relaxed under his touch. She hated to admit it. Why does he have to be so good at this? But she couldn't bring herself to push him away. As his hands continued their careful work, Ian spoke again. I've noticed you've grown rather close to the Shade family's son. Rita's expression remained unreadable. Miss, you must be careful, Ian continued, his hands trailing down to her shoulders. For an engaged woman, being seen with another man can only invite trouble. His touch lingered a little too long as his hands moved downward. Before he could go any further, Rita smacked his hands away and stood abruptly. I told you never to show yourself before me again, she said coldly. Miss, I only have your well-being in mind, Ian began, but his words were cut off by a sharp slap. His glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the floor. Appear before me again, and this will be the least of your worries, Rita warned, her voice dangerously low. Ian bent down to pick up his glass, his face flushed. My lady, your fiancé is of the esteemed Lawrence family. I only hope you would consider Count Alberhart's reputation. Rita froze. What? She clenched her fists. How dare you? She hissed. Ian straightened himself, offering a polite bow. I shall take my leave. Rest well, my lady. With that, he stepped out. Rita's breathing was uneven. So, he has someone backing him now? Fine, but let's see how long that support lasts. A slow, calculating grin crept onto her lips. Later that evening, Rita stood before her mirror as Jana assisted her with her robe. The moment I remove this, the scent will be overwhelming enough to disorient anyone nearby, she thought, watching herself closely. Miss, here, Jana said, handing her a small perfume bottle. Rita took it with a satisfied nod. Perfect. Let's go, she instructed. Yes, miss, Jana replied as they disappeared into the night. The two walked in silence through the dimly lit streets until they arrived at their destination. Where do all your dreams come true? Rita read the sign above the shop. How incredibly tacky. She forced a polite smile. Turning to Jana, she asked, Did you memorize the instructions I gave you? Of course, miss. And you remember what to do after? Yes. You can trust me. Rita smirked. They entered the shop. A sales attendant greeted them. Welcome. How can I assist you? Rita took a glance around before speaking. Is this everything your shop has to offer? Yes, my lady, the man answered. Lifting her hand slightly, Rita revealed the bandages wrapped around her fingers. The attendant's expression faltered. Those bandages? It can't be. Rita feigned a shy expression, lowering her gaze. The attendant immediately flushed. Jana stepped forward. This shop doesn't seem to have anything my lady requires, she said, feigning disappointment. I apologize, the man stammered. May I ask what it is you're looking for? A slow smile formed on Rita's lips as she stepped closer. Leaning in slightly, she whispered, Something to help a lady sleep and have the deepest dreams. At the underground shop, the sales attendant was frozen with hesitation. Rita calmly requested Sleeping Beauty, a well-known but illicit potion. She recalled Blaneshad's words about the shop's hidden trade in illegal substances, powerful hallucinogens, tranquilizers, and even a suicide poison that mimicked death before turning fatal. The irony of its name amused her. Reluctantly, the attendant agreed to fetch the item. Meanwhile, in the marketplace, Jana confirmed to Lucia that their plan was in place. If things turned dangerous, she would signal the guards immediately. Disguised, Rita walked through the city streets, waiting for the bait to work. Soon enough, a voice called out in urgency, Miss Alberhart! Baron Chuckard had taken the lure. Smiling to herself, Rita allowed him to catch up. Chuckard forcefully grabbed Rita's shoulder, stopping her escape. The fragrance from her perfume clouded his thoughts. Ushering her into a secluded alley, he accused her of planning another suicide attempt. Rita remained composed, dismissing his concern. Demanding the potion, Chuckard extended his hand, but Rita refused, tears slipping down her cheeks. Frustrated, he blocked her against the wall and restrained her, his grip tightening as he searched for the vial. His touch grew invasive, but Rita kept her composure, glancing toward Jana across the street, hoping she would act. Unfortunately, the alley's darkness obscured Jana's vision. Chuckard soon realized the potion wasn't hidden where he first searched. Instead, he found a pouch tied at Rita's waist and ripped it away. Rita cried out, but before she could react, Chuckard pinned her to the wall again. Desperate, she pleaded with him, claiming Jean was a devil and that this was her only way to escape. For a moment, Chuckard hesitated. Her tears unsettled him, but he remained silent. After a long pause, he released her. You cannot die, not as long as I am around, he stated before walking away. Watching him go, Rita smirked knowingly. You love Verta, don't you, Chuckard? She murmured. Jana rushed to Rita's side, apologizing for not acting sooner. Seeing Rita's torn cape, she became emotional, but Rita reassured her it was fine. Let's go home, Rita said with a weary smile. I'd love some of your tea. Determined to make up for her mistake, Jana wiped her tears and vowed to prepare the best tea yet. The two then headed back to Alberhart Manor. Back at the castle, Rita sat in her chambers with her trusted handmaiden Jana. No word from Julia yet? She inquired. No, miss. I'm sorry. We've sent several calling cards, Jana informed her. Rita smirked. Seems Julia's too embarrassed to show her face after being rejected from the royal guard. She leaned back in thought before adding, Keep sending them until she responds. Yes, miss, Jana replied, clenching her fists in determination. Rita then took a pouch and a letter from the table and walked toward Yersha, who was seated quietly, her gaze lifting at Rita's approach. Sorry to keep you waiting, Yersha, Rita said as she sat down. The scent from the pouch was familiar to Yersha. This perfume, it's Tatham's, she thought silently. I need your help, Rita stated with a smile. Yersha remained cold. How may I assist you? Verta's parents sent a letter from abroad. It seems they're in Tartham for an important transaction, Rita informed her. Tatham is your homeland, no? Yersha didn't respond, and silence settled between them. Rita's expression darkened as she recalled their first encounter. That day, Rita had been seething with anger. Clutching a blood-stained bounty notice with Yersha's face on it, she had thought, if this sorcerer could assassinate a sultan's mistress, she can surely help me. Determined, Rita had found Yersha's residence and pounded on the door with urgency. "What's all this ruckus? Are you insane?" an irritated neighbor had shouted. Rita had snapped back. "So what if I am? Mind your own business." Blood lingered at the corner of her mouth from a coughing fit, her eyes wild with determination. The neighbor, unnerved, quickly withdrew. Finally, the door had creaked open just slightly, revealing Yersha's cautious gaze. "A girl? Is she a bounty hunter?" Yersha had wondered. Before Yersha could react, Rita had forced the door wider and held up the bounty paper. "This is you, isn't it?" she had demanded. "I need your help." Yersha had sighed but stepped aside. "Come in." Once seated, Yersha had broken the silence. "My name is Yersha, meaning second flame born from the desert's most brilliant sands. And you?" "I'm Rita. They say you're a powerful sorcerer," Rita had said, wiping the blood from her mouth. "If I can grant your wish, if you will believe that. If I cannot, you will think me a fraud," Yersha had replied. "I am dying," Rita had admitted, gripping her dress tightly. "Can you save me?" Yersha had remained impassive. "Do I look like a doctor?" She had stood as if to leave. Desperation had driven Rita to grab Yersha's arm. "Then what about murder? How many people can you kill?" Yersha had paused, observing Rita's frantic state. "The law of the world is balance. To take a life, you must exchange it with another." "Then take mine. Let me trade my life to end another," Rita had pleaded. Yersha had considered. "How old is the person? How much time do they have left?" 40 years old. Likely 20 more to live," Yersha had sighed. "You don't have enough time left yourself. An unfair exchange nullifies any spell." Rita had fallen silent before grasping at another idea. "What about a suicidal girl?" A slow smile had formed on Yersha's lips. "I think I have an idea you'll like." Back in the present, Rita was glad she had found Yersha when she needed her most. "Verta's parents are staying at the palace. They've even dined with the Sultan and his wife. Would you like to read the letter?" Rita asked, sliding it toward Yersha. Yersha tucked it into her cape. "You didn't summon me to discuss your parents' business in Tatham. Why am I here?" Rita's expression sharpened. "I require a potion. A subtle one, difficult to detect, that only you can create." "And the ingredients?" Yersha asked. "Make it a stimulant, but not for seduction. Something that turns a person as violent as a gladiator," Rita specified. "My dear parents are far away. This is the perfect opportunity to rid myself of my fiancé." Yersha studied her. "Another life ruined by that innocent face," she thought before rising from her seat. "Send someone in 10 days. It will be ready," Yersha instructed. Rita smiled. "Thank you, Yersha." She offered the pouch. "Here, a gift." Yersha opened it, her expression softening. "Dried dates, cloves, argan oil, and saffron." "I wanted to get you something better, but this was all I could gather in time," Rita explained. Yersha inhaled the herbs with appreciation. Rita met her gaze with quiet conviction. "You are my savior. One day, I will help you return home." The next morning, Rita woke up feeling elated. "It's the perfect weather for a little scheming," she thought. "Did you sleep well?" Jana asked, holding a bowl of water. "I want to go out today, Jana," Rita replied. "Do you intend to go to the Shade Estate, miss?" Jana asked. "But we still haven't received an answer from Miss Julia," she added. Rita felt a bit perplexed, thinking, "Does this girl think Julia is my only friend?" "No, today, I'm going to the royal palace," Rita announced. Rita and her most trusted handmaiden, Jana, soon arrived at the royal palace, where they were greeted by a guard who offered to give them a tour. "I expected the royal palace to be more extravagant, but it's actually more practical than I imagined," Rita remarked as she took in the grand buildings. "That's the executive administration building over there," the guard pointed out. Suddenly, the sound of someone walking loudly caught their attention, and Jana was the first to recognize the figure. "Huh? That's?" Rita asked, curious. Julia Shade walked by, visibly angry and marching with purpose. "It's infuriating enough to be rejected by the royal guard," she fumed. "But how long is Count Todd going to be on sick leave? He should at least tell me the reason to my face." Rita smiled, noticing Julia's frustration. "Julia, what are the chances we'd run into each other here? The goddess must be smiling upon us today." Julia was taken aback, though she quickly composed herself. "Right, truly a stroke of luck," she replied, her voice shaky. Oh, you must have come from the Royal Guards building. Did you come to see your soon-to-be future workplace? How wonderful, Rita said with a hint of mockery. Rita clapped her hands, drawing the attention of those nearby. Verta, please be quiet. It's rude to be so loud, Julia muttered, feeling a bit embarrassed. Anyway, what brings you to the palace, Verta? Julia asked. I came to see my fiancé, Rita revealed. Our marriage may be arranged, but I've developed a fondness for him. I see. Well, I hope you have a nice time. I'm quite busy, Julia said, trying to move on. Rita quickly grabbed Julia's arm. Where do you think you're going? She thought to herself. Out loud, she said. Wow, Julia, you're so amazing. Unlike me, you've achieved everything through hard work and passion. A real officer of the Royal Guard, she added, almost gleefully. Julia's face tightened. Quit your chattering, girl, she thought, worried about being caught impersonating a government official. Let go, Julia whispered, noticing a guard standing nearby. Excuse me, do you work for the Royal Guard? Rita asked, drawing the guard's attention. Pardon? Ah, yes, that is correct, my lady, the guard replied. Then I suppose you'll be working together with my friend soon, Rita continued. Julia here will soon be an officer of the Royal Guard. Please treat her kindly. Julia turned bright red. Verta, enough. I was rejected from the guard, she admitted finally. Rejected? Rita asked, surprised. I'm sorry. I didn't know. That isn't the reason you've been rejecting my calling cards, is it? She asked with genuine concern. No, I've just been busy. You should hurry and go see your fiancé, Julia said, eager to leave. Yes, goodbye for now. Let's have tea time soon, Rita said with a wave as Julia walked away. Ah, that felt great. Now on to my pervert fiancé. Just you wait, I brought you a present, Rita thought as she entered the administrative building in the royal palace. Is this the executive administration building? Rita asked a guard. Yes, miss. May I ask what business you have here? The guard replied. I'm looking for Sir Jean Lawrence, Rita said. Ah, Sir Jean Lawrence. He works on the 4th floor. I can show you the way, the guard offered, but Rita declined. No, I wouldn't want to impede. I can find it myself, she said before walking off. What in the world is going on? Jean thought to himself. She's been unusually forward lately. How nice it would have been if she'd acted like this from the start. Stupid girl, always changing her mind, never knowing what's good for her. He knocked on the door of the waiting room where Rita was waiting. Come in, she called. Ver, what a pleasant surprise. What brings you all the way here? Jean asked, surprised. Thank you for making time, Jean, Rita said with a smile. Of course, Jean thought. She's back to her old self, acting pitiful and innocent. The aroma of this tea is exquisite. Shall I pour you a cup? Rita asked sweetly. No, I'll do it myself, Jean replied, taking the teacup and pouring some tea. Rita sighed softly. What is it this time? Jean asked, noticing her change in demeanor. Rita began sobbing, which irritated Jean. Now, don't be like that. In order for me to help you, you must tell me what's wrong, he said, trying to remain patient. I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. I'm begging you, please call off our engagement, Rita sobbed. I cannot marry you, Rita says, her voice breaking as tears fall from her eyes. At this point, Jean had lost count of how many times Rita had repeated those exact words. He sighed, unmoved by her pleas. Please say something, Jean, Rita begged, covering her face with her hands. Jean was weary of her constant begging. Verta, you're well aware that, regardless of what we want, this is an important union, he said, smiling coldly. How can you be so cold? Rita asked, her sobs continuing. I've told you many times, this engagement is between our households, John replied. Is the reputation of your household really that important? Rita asked, frustrated. You don't even love me. Can't you let me go? She pleaded, resuming her fake tears and covering her face while peeking at Jean. He sat, absent-minded, drinking his tea. Rita remembered asking Yersha for a potion that would be difficult to detect, one that could only be made by Yersha herself. When asked about the potion's components, Rita told Yersha she needed it as a stimulant to provoke violence. She planned to use it to hatch a scheme to rid herself of her fiancé. Rita knew that accusing Jean of attempted rape would be too obvious, so she needed a more decisive approach. Before Jean entered the room, Rita poured the contents of the potion Yersha had prepared into her teapot, the same tea Jean was about to drink. You're wondering why I don't love you, Jean remarked. But you're so beautiful. I do love you, he added, his hands trembling slightly. How predictable, Rita thought as she observed the potion beginning to take effect. It hurts me that you don't see my feelings for you, Verta, Jean continued. Rita noted that he had held out until now, but he wouldn't be able to much longer. Then why did you force me to kiss Baron Jacquard? Rita asked, wiping away her tears. You say you love me, yet you throw me at another man. How can you call yourself my fiancé? She demanded. Verta, enough! Jean snapped, irritated. She's being decidedly irritating today, he thought to himself. His hand began trembling more than before. To calm himself, Jean poured more tea and drank it. Rita smiled to herself. Now for the closing act, she thought. I know everything, she said coldly. What are you talking about now? Jean asked, looking at her in confusion. You're lacking down there, aren't you? Rita said with a sharp gaze. I saw everything, she added, her expression cold. What? Jean replied, taken aback by her words. Rita's mind flashed back to the time she had seen Jean and Baron Jacquard. I saw everything. You're so small and pathetic that you have your friends do it for you, right? Rita spat angrily. What did you just say? Jean asked, now furious. You eunuch fool, Rita cursed him, her voice full of disdain. Jean couldn't believe what he was hearing. His anger swelled uncontrollably. Did it work? Rita wondered. In an instant, Jean rushed toward Rita and slapped her, sending her to the ground. You brought this upon yourself. Understood? He yelled. From now on, watch your mouth. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I can't even put into words how insane that girl is, Jean muttered in anger as he walked away. Rita looked at her reflection in a mirror. He doesn't look like much, but he's stronger than I thought, she mused, as she observed the bruise on her face. Even though I gave him a stimulant, it only took one blow. He's more patient than I expected for a pervert, she thought with a wide smile. Outside the waiting room, Rita wandered through the 4th floor, taking in the surroundings. The sky is especially beautiful today, she remarked as she gazed out of the window. Unbeknownst to Rita, Prince Van Brandt was passing through the building. Upon seeing her, his eyes lit up. He watched her for a moment before calling, Miss Alberhart? Rita turned, surprised. Ah, it's an honor to meet you, Prince Brandt, she said, greeting him as she gently lifted her gown. You don't have to, the prince said, his attention drawn to her face. He quickly approached her, concerned. What happened to your face? He asked, taking her hands gently. Oh, this? It's nothing, Your Highness, Rita says quickly, trying to hide her face, which bears a mark from Jean's blow. Why do I have such terrible timing with this man? Rita thought, realizing she hadn't expected to meet the prince just then. Did someone dare strike you, my lady? Prince Brandt asked, his concern growing. I will have the culprit brought to justice. Just say the word. Oh, heavens, no, I simply made a little mistake. It's nothing, really, Rita lied, smiling as she spoke. She couldn't let him interfere with her plans. Stepping closer, Prince Brandt asked, Are you sure? His concern for her well-being was clear. You're very kind, but I really can't, Rita replied quietly. After all the work I've put into this plan, I can't be caught now, she thought to herself. Forgive me, Your Highness. I must be on my way now, Rita says, leaving the prince somewhat confused. Yes, I understand. I pray your journey is a safe one, he replies, bidding her farewell. Rita hurries down the stairs, eager to avoid any further questions, but Prince Brandt isn't convinced. That mark. Someone definitely struck her. But who would dare harm a lady so delicate? He wonders. Looking up at the 4th floor staircase, he recalls the presiding official there. But I can't make any accusations just yet, he thinks. Back at the Alberhart Manor, Rita stands in front of a long hallway, fully dressed in protective gear. Jana is concerned. Rita wears a helmet and heavy clothing. The other girls? Rita asks. They've all left as you instructed, Jana replies, her voice trembling. But miss, why have you returned like this after going to all that trouble to dress up for the royal palace? Rita remains silent. Poor Jana, but it's better I don't tell her what's about to happen, Rita thinks. If she knew what I had planned, she might faint. Rita tries to bend down to adjust her boots, but they're too tight. I can't bend over, she mutters in frustration. I'll do it, miss, Jana says, helping her. She puts on Rita's boots for her. Rita knows Jana is the only one she can rely on right now. All done, miss, Jana says after helping her. With all this padding, I'd survive even if a 6-horse carriage ran me over. Rita thinks to herself, feeling reassured. Jana, Rita calls. Yes, miss? Jana responds. Wait for me at the bottom of the stairs, Rita instructs. When I get there, take me to my room and remove all these clothes. Understand? Yes, miss, Jana says, hurrying to the bottom of the stairs, though confused. As Jana wonders what Rita could be planning, she briefly considers whether Rita is preparing to lose weight for the summer. But my lady is already so slender, Jana thinks. Rita watches Jana descend the stairs. The union between aristocratic families won't collapse over one slap. Rita reflects before purposely missing a step. I got slapped yesterday, but now I'll find the strength to move forward. As Rita tumbles down the stairs, Jana cries out, Miss. Rita hits each step hard, ultimately reaching the bottom. Good heavens, miss, Jana exclaims, rushing to her side. Another suicide attempt? She wonders, seeing Rita in pain. Miss, are you all right? Jana asks, teary-eyed. Rita grimaces in pain. That really hurt, she thinks, almost blacking out. Jana, she murmurs weakly. Yes, miss, Jana replies. Do as I told you, Rita insists. Pardon? Jana asks before remembering the request from earlier. Yes, miss, Jana says, helping Rita to her feet. Please, if something's broken, it's best not to move you, Jana says, still concerned. I'm fine. Just do it, Rita says, despite the pain, her determination clear. Jana helps Rita to her room as she groans in pain. Once seated, Rita asks Jana to remove her helmet, feeling dizzy. She warns Jana never to attempt a sauna under such conditions before drifting off to sleep, recalling that her fall down the stairs had been unavoidable. The next day, Rita wakes up and asks for a mirror. Examining her bruises, she notes they aren't as severe as she expected, but still noticeable. After checking the time, she asks Jana to prepare an outfit. She plans to go out. Rita arrives at Jean's castle, where a butler questions her unexpected visit. Noticing her injuries, he offers to call a doctor, but she declines, subtly covering her face. Unbeknownst to him, Rita had applied makeup to make her bruise appear more prominent, ensuring no one would suggest medical attention. Inside, she asks if Jean is home. The butler informs her he is still at the palace, but offers to send word of her visit. Of course, he isn't home. I planned it this way, Rita thinks before thanking him. Before he leaves, she asks if Baron Jacquard is present. Upon confirmation, she requests to see him. Meanwhile, Jacquard hesitates outside the door, lost in thought. He recalls a conversation with Jean, where John had mocked a woman's misfortune and suggested Jacquard entertain her instead. He also remembers overhearing Verta's desperate pleas, realizing she was more vulnerable than he had assumed. Back in the present, Jacquard wonders why Rita has come now. Inside the room, unaware of his hesitation, Rita discreetly pours a potion into a cup of tea. When she hears a knock, she quickly hides the vial. Jacquard enters but does not immediately approach. He studies her in silence, recalling their past encounter. Finally, he sits across from her, avoiding eye contact. He won't even look at me, Rita notes. She realizes Baron Jacquard is afraid of her. Baron Jacquard sits down, asking Rita why she called him. She apologizes, saying she has something urgent to discuss. Pressed for time, Jacquard agrees to listen while he drinks a cup of tea. As he sips, he suddenly feels unsettled. Rita, in tears, begs him for a special potion, claiming it's her only way to escape John. Her emotional outburst stuns Jacquard. He grabs her arm, noticing scars that he realizes weren't self-inflicted. Demanding an explanation, he is taken aback when Rita mockingly asks if he likes what he sees before breaking down again. She insists she has no way out. Whether by Jean's hand or her own, she will be doomed either way. Her words provoke Jacquard's anger as he reflects on how Jean mistreats her. Unbeknownst to him, the potion Rita slipped into his tea is taking effect. She continues pleading, pressing her face against his shoulder and deliberately leaving a lipstick mark on his shirt. Jacquard, momentarily flustered, pulls away. Finishing his tea, he reminds her of their deal and leaves. Unaware, Rita is silently crying behind him. Outside, Jacquard, still fuming, bumps into Jean. Jean immediately notices the lipstick stain and taunts him, accusing him of getting too close to Rita. When Jacquard remains silent, Jean coldly admits to hurting Rita, justifying it as teaching her a lesson. His words fuel Jacquard's anger, especially when Jean callously suggests he could use her to his advantage. Unable to contain himself, Jacquard punches John, knocking him to the ground. Overcome with rage, he continues attacking him as guards rush in. Alarmed, the guards call for clubs and begin striking Jacquard to subdue him. Watching from her room, Rita is surprised at how strongly the potion affected Jacquard. As chaos unfolds, she quietly slips away, knowing it will take time for things to settle. Taking the opportunity, she searches through the castle and stumbles upon a hidden room, revealing Jean's secret and depraved interests. Smirking, she realizes she may have just found something useful.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more manhwa content. See you in the next one.